my faithful followers and friends. Thank you for joining me for another season of Ain't Gonna Be No Stupid. I am here with one of the consummate gurus of all things literary. I am so honored to be here with Carol Jago. I could read you her credentials. It may take me the whole episode. I can mention the books that I still have. It just survived my move. Cohesive writing, why concept is not enough. Classics in the classroom. Papers, papers, papers. Literature and composition. These are all, and then with Rigor for All and Beyond Standards are at school. And I know you wrote one. This is the only one I haven't read, which is the Reading is in Crisis book.
Yes, the book in question.
Ooh, that is why I love this title. You came up with it. Ain't a book I won't try. I do have to say, I was not a reader as a child. It's funny that I'm an English teacher. And let me give a little backstory before I also mention how we are connected in California as well. And then we're going to get into the program. I grew up in a small town and I had my 4-year English degree. I'm going to explain the title of this podcast right now. 4-year English degree, 2 months away from graduating. My mom said, what are you going to do with this English degree? No, I said, what am I going to do with this English degree? She said, you should be a teacher. And I'm like, I ain't going to be no stupid teacher. And I remember it verbatim, like it happened yesterday. I truly said that. But guess what? God had other plans because I ended up staying another 1.5 years to do my credentials, tried to quit teaching twice. And the time that I met you in California, you were teaching at Santa Monica, and you were visiting Millikan High School. And this is the year I took off. Like I taught at Paramount for 10 years. And then Millikan, you were just there with a bunch of English teachers. And I remember you doing a workshop with us. I'm sure you didn't get paid for it. And it just blew me away that you traveled all that way down to Long Beach from Santa Monica to do that. So it's so cool to see that we're back together in Chicago. And every time I go to one of your workshops, I'm reignited. The love of teaching comes back to me. And I so appreciate the energy you bring. So today, I would love to start with an icebreaker if I could. Think about all the things in the world. This doesn't have to do with our title, but it can. All things in the world that other people just think is right. But you know, this is one thing. It's like a they say, I say. This is what you know for sure. What is that one thing?
I think the one thing I know for sure is that the more we read, the more we know. And the more we know, the more we're able to do.
Oh, we could end it right there. Like that is exactly what I didn't want to talk about the National Writing Project or COP yet, but let's talk about what you're going to be doing in National Writing Project on July 16th is a breakout session. And what the title of this Midwest Conference for educators is Claiming Our Agency in the New Normal. Can you talk a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about there?
Writing really helped change my life as a teacher. So I've been teaching for many years. And, curiously, what you had said about yourself as a teacher, I was never going to be a teacher. My family are all teachers. I'm never going to be a teacher. Only dumb people become teachers. But I didn't have enough plan B. My plan B when I moved to LA from Santa Barbara was to continue waitressing.
Oh, yeah.
And, instead, my boyfriend at the time took me to USC, said, why don't you go up there to the education department? This is a true story. The person there said, so where do you want a student teach? Santa Monica or Santa Ana? I don't even know LA. I said, I think Santa Monica is closer to where I'm staying. The next day, I'm in a middle school 8th grade classroom. There's no teacher. The substitute said, well, you might as well do it. And 32 years later, I retired from Santa Monica Valley Business District after just an extraordinary, wonderful, wonderful life as a teacher.
Right.
So
I'm entering my 32nd year this year. So it's my freshman year is this year, and then I graduate 4 more years. So
and one of the things that help continue to invigorate me all those years was writing.
Yes.
And that's part of what I want to talk about at COP. COP is Chicago Area Writing Project. Right. Is how, as a teacher, you think you couldn't do one more thing.
Right.
You got papers to grade. How could I do one more thing? But actually writing about our practice. So I wrote a weekly education column for the Los Angeles Times for about 14 years. It helped me process my work as a teacher, my thinking, process my questions.
Exactly.
It really made a difference for me, and then lay the groundwork for writing however many books
Yes.
I've written.
Yes.
And then being able to speak, because I think that writing them prepares you to put together sentences in a coherent way off the top of your head.
Well, if you're struggling with the very thing you're trying to teach your students, I think that's part of the better teacher. That's a better teacher practice, as opposed to just assigning the same things over and over every time and never struggling with it yourself. But COP did the same thing for me in 2015. It gave me the shot in the arm that I needed when, again, I was trying to quit again. I think I tried to quit 3 times. I really did. And it's really one of those things where, like, it's like an animal in and of itself. By the way, that's what I just squirted. I have 2 noisy dogs that are crying because I'm not sitting next to them right now. So I just had to squirt her with a water bottle because she's not sitting still. So you are also going to be speaking at the COP, because you're next weekend at the National Writing. But then you're igniting the first day of our COP Institute as well, which is writing for civic engagement, which I perceive, I think we feel like civic engagement is just like everybody's out there protesting. And it's really, I think, more about building that community and really finding empathy. Do you find then with, like, why are you such a reader and tackle so many books? I just asked you 2 questions.
I'm part of really, why am I such a reader? Because I don't know enough.
Yes.
Every day, I'm just, every year of my life, I realize how little I understand about the world around me. So that's a really big part of why I read. Yes. And when I'm going to be presenting at the Midwest Conference for the NWP is about, like, kind of why read literature at a time like this, the role of literature in troubling times. Because I think there are people both from both sides of the spectrum. On one side, a more conservative point of view says, why read Jane Austen or books? I mean, you need to get a job. You need to study marketing and be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. On the other side, with so much injustice in the world, with so many structural things, is saying, what is fiction? What do stories have to do to help us? And I want to say something to both sides. Like, to the one side, it's not just about making a living. I want to help students make a life.
Yes.
And to the other side, I want to say, I think that the only thing ultimately that can change how people think are stories. Mm-hmm. Stories from real people. They could be fiction stories or they could be nonfiction stories. Right. But I mean, I just watched an extraordinary HBO documentary, The 5 Speeches of Frederick Douglass. And that it was his words, his voice and his words that persuaded Abraham Lincoln to do what had to be done. And so I think that it's literature is one of those things that's easily discounted as an important skill. STEM, and this is nothing to, no. Of course we need all of these things, but the best scientists are readers too. Yes. Because they understand, Robert Schultz, the call of stories, how important it is for doctors to hear their patients' stories.
You mentioned Frederick Douglass' voice, and I'm a big proponent of helping students find their voice. My voice was often shut down. I just find, would you say that with your history as a reader, was there a pivotal moment that you, either as a reader or writer, that you were like, oh, because it seems like you just are one of those people that lives in their purpose on this earth. I don't think everyone finds it, but you just, how did you find this?
Actually, I mean, I don't remember ever not reading. And so I was one of those child readers. And actually, it's partly because I thought my family was so boring. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. We lived in, Hickstown suburbs. my family watched television in the night. Like to me, I wasn't good at making friends. I didn't like anybody in the neighborhood. I found more interesting people in
Oh,
books
I
than
love
I
that.
found on the block. Now, I'm not recommending this childhood, but it led me to, it gave me an enormous background for reading that then really enriched my teaching.
Yep.
Because when I'd know my students and I'd say, well, what about this book? And a different student, oh, no, this book over here. And I've also always been kind of a magnet for books. I don't know what it is. People give me books. I also buy books just without hesitation. And so I also have a lot of books around me, and I'm always moving them around, little libraries, give them away. And it always seems to me, the more you give away, the more you have. It's like a little competition.
It's true. It's true. Well, you know what? I love that, because I want to quote your the composition. I was looking through the textbook. I had thought it's some really great tips, especially for people that are not readers. And you talk about a 3-step approach in this textbook: experience, analysis, and extension. So for those that are not readers, the ones that say, I hate reading, I think this is such a great thing if you could elaborate on these 3 things. Experience is the visceral and emotional part of reading. Could you speak more about that?
Well, too often we take a real didactic view. Reading is good for you. I don't think that works. Like, take this.
Right.
It's good for you. You'll hate it now, but thank me later.
Right.
I think as a teacher, if I'm going to teach the Odyssey, I better have a way to connect Odysseus and his search for home,
Yes.
his endless journey with a lot of interruptions, to all of the journey how we're all on this journey to self-discovery. If I can't do that, I should pick another book.
Yes, I agree. That's good. How about the analysis part, the cerebral thinking part?
This is a very interesting thing that I heard I was listening to an earlier podcast of yours, Amy, and you were talking about students coming in, getting back in connection with students of yours. In the last couple months, I've had 4 ex-students who published books. Now, these aren't teenagers. These are, like in 50s. And one of the things that Shawn Peters, who I taught him when he was 15, he's just written a book called The Unforgettable Logan Foster.
Love it.
About a neurodiverse kid, orphan, classic story, an orphan.
Neuro-divergency is key in understanding our students.
And this kid thinks he'll never be adopted. And then this couple comes and adopts him, but turns out they're superheroes. So he's the most normal person in the family. It's wonderful. But how this relates to what you just asked is that, so I interviewed Shawn Peters for California English, and he was saying, you're the only teacher I had who actually, we talked about books. We thought, so if we think about analysis, not as, again, hard work, but a way of using your brain process what it is you're reading.
I love that. Love that your students all wrote books. What an inspiration you've been.
Oh, can I tell you one more?
Yeah, absolutely. I see you have a stack there. Let's go through them all.
Well, okay. So yesterday on NPR, they have their editor's best picks. Antwan Wilson, Mouth to Mouth, a novel, again, set in Santa Monica Beach.
Yes.
But, great book. And Rebecca Donner just won the National Book Critics Circle Award for her biography, All the Frequent Troubles of Our Days. This is a biography of her own great aunt, who was part of a resistance movement against Hitler. And she was American, but she married a German scholar, and she was beheaded by Hitler for her trouble. But this is just like
right. And I keep wanting to read these books. They keep coming though, and as a teacher, we should add that to the curriculum, and then all the ropes you have to go through to get there and do that. But it's great that we have the richness of people like you to help with that, facilitate that process. Last step on that 3-step approach was extension, real world application, which you kind of alluded to already. But why is reading so important?
But for example, let's think about all the frequent troubles of our days, how quickly authoritarianism became part of people's lives in Berlin.
Yeah.
And just to help, how are we going to see what's happening to us now, except through the lens of history and to learn from what has happened before? I think that's the, again,
I think that's key too. Like you said, the lens, like the civic engagement piece. We need to look at the world through the lens of a variety of people. There's not a left, there's not a right. There's multiple perspectives in an argument. It's not black and white thinking. Understand, listen, and appreciate. It doesn't need, we don't have to be right. Like, nah, so it's about that I think literature does that, right? And that's the purpose of also this podcast, is just giving everyone the chance to tell their story in their voice. They find their voice. One thing I thought was cool, you also wrote in your textbook that this quote, I don't know if it's you speaking, but it says, neither a treasure hunt nor an interrogation to figure out what the author is hiding is the purpose of reading. And writers worth their salt will puzzle the reader, spark a debate, invite diverse interpretations, and inspire rereading.
And that's what I think makes a book worth talking about.
Ooh,
worth studying together in class. There are a lot of books that are not worth studying in class. The kids should read. I mean, and I get tomatoes thrown at me for this, because I do not think all books are created equal. I am happy for kids to read anything they want, but not all those books have those criteria, meet the criteria you just read me. They really do not. And a lot of books that are very, quite popular are just like teenagers talking to other teenagers about teenage problems.
Yeah, and they're hard to read.
I mean, that serves a purpose in a teenager's growth and life. But it doesn't serve much purpose for me trying to develop students intellectually and morally and just opening them up to conversations.
Yes, I agree with that completely. Wow. I did want to, let's see, I wanted to pretty much speak, well, I'm trying to think, we could probably close with, I'm trying to see, this is pretty much my notes. My notes are all like teacher notes, right? Throw them out, don't need them. I just want to have a conversation with you. You're amazing. I want to end the program, if we could, with some homework, like one challenge to the educators of the world in this tumultuous time. And I'd like to challenge also the people that aren't reading.
I think that the challenge that I'd like to pose, that you call it homework, is to read something outside your comfort zone. So let's say you kind of think graphic novels are stupid. Give them a chance. I mean, I think of George Takei, who was on Sula on Star Trek. He's written a book, When We Were Enemy, about growing up in a Japanese internment camp.
Yes.
This is an extraordinary graphic autobiography. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, one incredible hurdle that I had to get over was nonfiction. I just always read fiction. I didn't even go into that part of the library or that part of the bookstore. And when, particularly, let's say 10 years ago, when nonfiction had to come more into the classroom, and I started reading, and I said, oh my God, what is wrong with me? That there's so much, particularly that so many people writing extraordinary nonfiction right now are journalists. So they know how to tell a story. I think of Beth Macy's Dopesick. I think of this year's Pulitzer Prize winner, Invisible Child. I think of Matthew Desmond's Evicted. I mean, I could go on and on. There are Empire of Pain, which again is about the Sackler family, the opioid crisis. These are amazing books that I, for 20 years, never ever brought it into my classroom. And I think we've made huge progress in that regard.
And yet you wrote only nonfiction.
That's true.
Isn't that ironic? I
That's
know.
true. I have no interest in writing fiction. I just want to read it.
Same. I'm really one of those people. I think it's ironic too that it's called nonfiction. I can see the boardroom where they're deciding on fiction is called fiction. Well, what are we going to call nonfiction? Well, let's call it non, because it's, like, I just feel like the bias even in the title in and of
Yeah.
itself. But yeah, is there anything else we should cover before we close this program?
I think there's one other thing that, we're facing a whole lot of book challenges, and that teachers need to know you're not alone. That National Council of Teachers of English, all library, American Library Association, all have resources that can help you, because it would be a really sad thing to lose the diversity of voices that we've succeeded in bringing into our classrooms.
Yes.
And in fact, today's New York Times had a piece on this extraordinary librarian in Texas, who went through just a horrific text challenge. And I heard her on a webinar, and she said something really, really important to me. She says, first of all, if you're facing one of these challenges, it's not about you. Many times it's not even about the book. These are culture wars that are being fought, and the battleground is the classroom right now. And so we have to be strong, we have to be together, we have to be thoughtful and respectful of other points of view.
Yes.
But at the same time, holding firm to the importance of a diverse range of books to students' intellectual lives.
I think that's a brilliant challenge to those non-readers and educators that are feeling so drained and disconnected, that we should just come back together in the fold and just really support each other outside of just our own schools. Because really, when you find out other schools are feeling the same way we're feeling, it's less lonely, right? It's less daunting. So Carol, what a blessing it's been to talk to you. I appreciate you so much. It's never enough. I don't want to take up more of your time, but is there a way you want us to find you? Carol Jago at caroljago.com, Twitter?
It's cjago@caroljago.com.
Oh, okay.
And it's my Twitter handle is @caroljago, one word.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you so much.
It's been delightful. Thank you for
Thanks,
the
Carol.
invitation.
Thanks, Carol. Bye.